remote stop via mobile app, or swipe card to stop charging and remove cable. The EV industry knows many different stakeholders who have different needs. Our charging management solution's purpose is to serve all these stakeholders with smart, modular, future-proof charging stations for home, business, and public. Added to that are fast and super-fast DC chargers. Our charging management software comes with many features to enhance the client experience with the charging process, such as user management, station management, charging card management, station locator and direct payment, access management, set charging tariffs, invoicing and reimbursement, and many other awesome features. We offer AC and DC charging stations. 1. AC charging stations. Perfect for regular charging, from 3.7 kilowatts to 22 kilowatts. Our AC charging stations have an exceptional uptime percentage. LV, the only charger you'll ever need. Homeline, perfect for charging in semi-private parking areas. Business line, perfect for charging in commercial and semi-public areas. Public line, perfect for charging in the streets and public areas. 2. DC charging stations. Fast, flexible, and reliable fast and super fast chargers. Our fast chargers is equipped with a powerful output of 50 kilowatts DC, which can charge up to 125 kilometers in just 30 minutes. Super fast charges with a powerful output of 350 kilowatts DC, which can charge up to 400 kilometers in less than 15 minutes. Our smart charging services optimize our charging stations by creating and distributing the available power in an energy-efficient and flexible manner, which includes many top technologies such as load balancing, hub satellite, Smart Queue. Who can be benefited from our charging solutions? Home charging, drivers who need to charge at home. Fleet management, businesses who need charging solutions for employees and corporate drivers. Commercial charging, businesses who want to offer charging services to customers. Access public charging stations, drivers who want to charge in public areas in different cities and countries. Mobility service provider, businesses who want to offer charging services to EV drivers. Charging point operator, businesses who want to offer charging services to location owners. With CATEC EV charging solutions, drive electric, charge everywhere.
The grass isn't always greener on the other side. The grass on this side is just as green. For one, the road you'll be taking tomorrow will be green and free of emissions, sustained by smart charging infrastructure that runs on open source software and standardized protocols. We want change. Change in the way you perceive and use transportation by offering scalable solutions that you can rely on every step of your way. We want every electric car and driver to easily access charging infrastructure, whether it's out on the road, at the office, or at home. We are making this happen by expanding our charging stations, software, and services worldwide with the help of thousands of partners and changemakers. We're on a mission towards zero emissions, and so are you.
I can see the future painted in my eyes. Open up the door and fade into the night. Dive into what I know. Take my hand, follow me into the sun. There's something. This is where we go.
At Standard Chartered, we believe money can be a force for good, which is why we've committed $75 billion to funding sustainable projects in parts of the world that need it most. Because progress doesn't have to cost our planet.
This is where we go, my life.
Standard Chartered, here for good.
As smart as you, we have made a smart charging companion for your EV. Say hello to the award-winning Sitter Smart 7. An incredible high-performance home charger. Here's why Smart 7 is incredible. It fits compactly and pairs easily with the residential grid. Plugs into any Type 2 of EV and gives a maximum power of up to 7.2 kilowatts for single-phase installation. It also balances the power to your home by safely managing the electrical load. A capability to harness solar power as a source of energy to charge your EV. An ingenious mobile app that can also automate the charging schedule of your EV as per your convenience. You can look at the charger's smart analysis anytime on the app. Just pair it with your Wi-Fi and manage everything on the mobile app, or you can always command it with access cards. A cutting-edge, award-winning EV charger. Sitter Smart 7. Not just a charger, a leap towards sustainability.
The Electric Vehicles Network by Green Parking. The Green Parking EV Network is a web of electric vehicle chargers spanning the Middle East that aims to make EV chargers more accessible to the public by installing them in areas such as hotels and shopping centers. Our mission is to provide free of charge accessible smart chargers for the ever-growing wave of EV drivers on the roads. Our chargers are all connected to an online platform and accessible through an innovative and easy-to-use app. The app will not only tell you where a charger is, it will also display its availability, status, reservation information, and even provide directions to it. The Electric Vehicles Network by Green Parking.
Can your investments have a positive impact on the world? At Standard Chartered, we believe money can be a force for good. Through your sustainable investments with us, we're financing hospitals that are the heartbeat of local communities, funding clean energy to make electricity more accessible, and investing in innovative solutions to clean polluted marine habitats. Sustainable investments that benefit you and parts of the world that need it most. We're Standard Chartered, and we're here for good.
This is the second day of the annual summit for the Clean Energy Business Council. Panel number 4, today's panel is looking at energy efficiency in the MENA region, doing a deep dive into the market status, looking at challenges, opportunities. And I would like to mention as well that right after this panel, panel number 5, there will be a sneak preview of the annual energy efficiency report that CEBC publishes, and I kindly invite everyone to stick around for that. My name is Raed Kirat. I'm a senior advisor at the Clean Energy Business Council, and I'm delighted to be moderating today's panel. Maybe a little bit of context, just as we start. As you all know, finally, we're beginning to see some relief, an exit point to this difficult COVID phase with the rollout of vaccines and things beginning to stabilize around the world. I think governments are looking to re-energize their economies and restart their engines, as they say. We saw a lot of economic relief and stimulus packages that governments are rolling out in the realm of hundreds of billions or even trillions. And as you all know, there's a lot of this relief is really directed at two main goals. One is to combat climate change and the impact of the changes in the environment, the severe changes in weather conditions and so on, and the impact on infrastructure. And at the same time, they're hoping to utilize the energy transition that is needed in this climate mitigation to be an economic transition, talking about job creation and bringing back sustainable jobs into the economy. And there's no better platform for that than to use climate mitigation as the pretext for it. Now, in the center of all this is decarbonization, as we all know. Yesterday, there was a very interesting court ruling, a landmark, I would say, actually. I read it very briefly. Court ordered Royal Dutch Shell to reduce their emissions by 45%, I think by 2030, in 9 years. And 45% in emissions in operations and the products they serve. I mean, think about that for a second. It's huge. And this is Royal Dutch Shell. I mean, this is the writing on the wall. And it's becoming, reality. So decarbonization finally is the heart of all this. We saw a few weeks back, few presidents commit to slashing emissions by 50% by 2050 and so on. So it's finally things are on to us becoming a more resilient, a more sustainable society and economy. So in the heart of decarbonization, two things, renewables and energy efficiency. And obviously the topic of today's panel is energy efficiency. If you look at the MENA region, MENA region in general still depends up to 98% on oil and gas. The MENA region, from an energy intensity standpoint, if you measure that per GDP, there is a very strong coupling. Unfortunately, still we have a very strong connection between economic growth and energy use. Although some economies around the world manage to slightly decouple that. So there is economic growth, there is growth in GDP without necessarily increasing energy consumption. The GCC is still one of the highest energy use per capita. And still the GCC leads, I think, in terms of energy efficiency, the market development, ESCOs and super ESCOs, and so on. So I'm delighted today to be with a group of really experts in the field. And with that, I would like to invite our panelists to present themselves, name, organization, and things you're working on. Maybe we start with top right. Will you present yourself, please?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is John Rafferty, and I work for ESB, ESB International. ESB, my name, a bit of background for myself. I'm from Ireland. I've been based in Ireland for the past few years, working on various projects in Ireland and GB within our ESCO wing that operates primarily within the Irish and GB market. ESB, just for a bit of context, ESB are the main utility on the island of Ireland. We are the owners of the transmission and distribution system north and south of the Irish border, as well as the operators of the distribution system. We are a vertically integrated utility with wings in T&D, power generation, supply, and we operate, as I say, both in Ireland and in GB. We've quite a diverse portfolio. We've seen a lot in Ireland. We've seen a lot of renewables come onto the system. Ireland has a significant portion of wind, being quite a windy and wet country. And what we've seen over the past few years is a shift from conventional generation more towards things like non-synchronous generation, inverter-based generation, and inertialess generation. And Ireland has very much been at the cold face of these new and emerging energy systems that have to deal with a lot of, a lack of stability and a lack of robustness. And ESB is a utility that has been primarily focused on addressing these concerns. What we've seen is what we've learned primarily from experiencing these situations, and we can speak more about this later, is that we have a lot of knowledge and a lot to offer internationally on how to address these issues and how to better utilize a quite closed and a quite condensed system. So the international wing of ESB, we've been working internationally and in the Middle East for the past 45 years or so. We actually operate in around about 120 countries globally, providing various consultancy services, utility-to-utility consultancies, transformative services, owner's engineer, buyer's engineer, for CCGTs, thermal and renewable. So like quite a broad portfolio. I have been recently appointed to head up our operations in Oman. I'm very much looking forward to hitting the ground running. Once I arrive there in the incoming weeks, and we see a lot of potential in Oman and the Middle East region in terms of these energy efficiency and energy services businesses. So that's it for me.
Thank you, John, and we look forward to seeing you in the Middle East. Stefan. I think Stefan is reconnecting. Okay, while Stefan connects back, Engineer Faisal Rashid, please introduce yourself. You're on mute, I think. Yes, please.
Yes, sorry about that. My name is Faisal Ali Rashid. I am Demand Side Management Senior Director at the Supreme Council of Energy. I'll speak a little bit about the Dubai Supreme Council of Energy and a little bit about my directorate within the Dubai Supreme Council of Energy. DSE is basically tasked with is the governing body, which is tasked with policy development, setting governance framework to streamline existing energy practice across DSE entities, basically entities that are related to or linked to energy, whether it is linked to energy generation, water generation, transport, or waste. Also, we're tasked with planning and coordinating concern authority and energy bodies to deliver new sources for energy while employing a balanced approach to protect the environment. Also, DSE has set dynamic strategic direction to achieve saving in power, water consumption, as well as fuel abatement to increase the penetration of green vehicle, including hybrid and electric vehicle. And also our vision is to be always a role model in the region in terms of energy security, in terms of energy efficiency, and our mission to support Dubai economic growth through security and energy supply, diversification of energy sources, and also energy efficiency while meeting the environmental and sustainability objective. So this is just a brief from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faisal. And I think we'll be diving in a little bit on some of the impressive work that the Supreme Energy Council is leading. Stefan.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So just my name is Stéphane Legentil. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and for Abu Dhabi Energy Services that we abbreviate as ADES. ADES is a subsidiary of TAQA, which is the integrated utility in Abu Dhabi. Myself, I've been in the UAE for now 8 years, focusing entirely on energy efficiency in buildings, ESCOs, super ESCOs, and all of this. And I'm quite happy to join this panel, and I thank the organizers and the audience to be here today.
Thank you, Stefan. We look forward to your insights, being a veteran in this field. Last but not least, Rashid, you're on mute, yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rashid Hamida. I've been working as Vice President on energy and technology activities at Enova. Enova is a joint venture between Majid Al Futtaim and Veolia. Our core business, we have two core business. The first one is the facility management, how it was our first DNA. Since the establishment of the first super ESCO company in Dubai, we are acting also as one of the players when it comes to energy efficiency and so on. Our activity is spread around the region in 7 countries, and now we open the 8th one in Turkey. And on all those countries, we are providing both services, facility management, as well as energy management. And I'm also have the chance to be a board member of the CEBC, this very nice organization. Hopefully will bring a lot of value on ESCO and energy efficiency industry, generally speaking.
Thank you, Rashid. I would like to remind our audience and viewers to submit comments and questions. I think if you go on stage, there is a tab for Q&A. Please feel free to submit your questions there, and we'll try to address them towards the end of the panel. I mean, the format of the panel really is a bit informal. I mean, I have a list of questions, topics that they connect back and forth with the topic of energy efficiency. We'll kickstart it with our panelists, but I think the whole point is really to try to give more of a deeper insight and keep things informative. Stefan, let's start with you, please. I mean, you've seen the super ESCO, the ESCO market really start from its early days in Dubai with your work in Etihad ESCO. Now you're doing a similar initiative in Abu Dhabi. In terms of opportunities, and let's talk opportunities, talk about challenges. If you look at the energy efficiency in MENA, what are the opportunities in energy efficiency if you look at it from the government perspective as well as the private sector perspective? You can give us some insight on that, please.
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. I think there is a lot of opportunities on this market. So I did not mention in detail Abu Dhabi energy services, but you mentioned it. So we are the super ESCO for Abu Dhabi. So we are here to organize the retrofit market in Abu Dhabi, focusing on government buildings and semi-government buildings. But if you look at in general, the opportunities, I think there is, following this pandemic, a lot of people have realized that there's a lot to do. You see a lot of rise in ESG and sustainability in the corporate environment. Just as an example, recently, so our parent company, TAQA, announced its strategy for sustainable and profitable growth, put commitment on ESG principles and practices, etc., etc. So you see that more and more. So in the corporate world, there's a lot of opportunities at the moment. You've heard, and we've all heard about the concepts that are emerging: green recovery, global recovery, citizenships. You know, things that are reforms that are being put in place by governments to really improve the prosperity after the pandemic. The other thing is that the ESCOs, so the energy services companies, when you look it's in the region, it's still a fairly new concept. So I think it's now existing for probably around 8 years in the region. But if you look in markets where it has been existing for much longer, like the US, there is, for example, this figure that was communicated by the National Association of ESCOs in the US, which says that all the ESCOs in the US have delivered $55 billion of savings in the US since 1990. So there is a huge opportunity also related to reducing costs and reducing, when you reduce electricity consumption, you reduce costs, you reduce emissions. So it's all positive. Now, talking a little bit about the local market in Abu Dhabi, a pilot that was launched by the Department of Energy a couple of years ago on, I think, 7 or 8 buildings. And this pilot has shown that there is an initial average saving of 38% across those buildings. So there is a significant opportunity for making savings. in general, the UAE is quite advanced compared to the region. I think there is a mix of policies, regulations existing. There is guidelines. There is organization like being put in place. There is even at the UAE the national level a roadmap, the Energy Strategy 2050, as a roadmap for reducing consumption. I think it says that it looks to increase the efficiency of individuals and corporates by 40% in terms of energy, which is quite significant. So really here, there is a lot of vision here, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for all the actors that are being put in place. There are also challenges that we can talk about maybe after.
Sure. I mean, so from private sector standpoint, I mean, this is a chance to reduce OPEX, I mean, to keep it in simple terms, and at the same time achieve some of their goals in ESG, environment, social, and governance. From a government standpoint, it depends on the subsidies provided. If it's a subsidy-heavy electricity market, which is the Middle East and MENA in general, I think that's obviously relieving a burden on the governmental side. In terms of challenges, and this is not just for Stefan, but Stefan can lead the discussion with the remainder of the panelists. In terms of challenges, what do you see as the main challenges for energy efficiency in the region?
Yeah, I think, well, when we talk about challenges, it's a good thing because it's also the way, I mean, identifying the challenges is part of finding the solution. So I think I'll talk more about opportunities around that. So I think there is a fairly large thing which is educating customers in general, because one of the issues of energy efficiency visible is not something that people like to talk about. It's not very fancy. So a lot of work needs to be done to educate customers about. There is also maybe things around creation of policies and regulations that would be strict, obtain results, obtain action, and this kind of things. You may, if again, you know, it requires people to do efforts to do energy efficiency, and if there is no incentive, some may not simply do it. There is the incentive of the costs. Okay, I'm going to save costs, so okay, it's good to do because I'm going to save costs, but you may need some other action points or regulations or things that will incentivize people to take action around. And there is also sometimes the issue of financing all this, because doing energy efficiency requires finance. But that's where I think the UAE has been put in place those super ESCOs, because they are here to help finance projects as well and remove this burden of financing. But still, it can be an issue, especially in the private sector. So I think we all to increase awareness about energy efficiency. And if you look at the recent public that was done by the IEA, International Energy Agency, with their net zero roadmap for 2050, which is a huge piece of clearly energy efficiency and energy efficiency in buildings is clearly identified as one of the existing things in technology that should be reinforced. That it's existing, it works, but it's not developed enough. And I think awareness, the fact that the IEA is putting this in their roadmap and pushing it very strongly, helps us in terms of awareness. For me, that's the main thing that requires action.
Okay, all right. Okay. We talked about buildings. Why are buildings so important? When we look at energy efficiency, there are different sectors. Why buildings come up front? I think this is a point that Faisal wanted to discuss. Why buildings are so important for energy efficiency? If I do a priority list, buildings come at the top. Why is that?
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to what Stefan has mentioned on the challenges. I think the key thing to start with is to have a strategy. I think once you have a strategy not for energy efficiency only, for the whole energy management aspect related to energy security, energy demand side management, integrated water strategy, also green transport. So the strategy will set the tone, will have the detail, will have the breakdown structure. I think once we have the strategy, once we have the enablers, once we have the activation, I think this will be a good problem to deal with. I think rather than not having time to solve or trying to push an initiative, I think once you initiate on some strong, solid ground, like I mentioned, the strategy, the governance structure, the committee that you have to structure, the advisory committee in the meantime. Then we have the measurement and verification aspect for this strategy for the project, and then also reporting and the approval process with the top decision makers. I think once you put all these things together, I think we can say it's going to be different from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, and then as you evaluate and you look at 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you can see the difference, and you can, I think, celebrate the achievement in general. With respect to building, we know the building are a heavy user of energy. I think in Dubai, even outside Dubai and the region, I think 80% of power generation goes to energy, and also 60% of greenhouse gas emission also from the power generation consumed by energy. So when we address energy efficiency within building, I think the benefit is not only for the year that we finish. I think the benefit we can see that down the year. I think 10 years from today, we can see each year we will benefiting. And if we don't address energy efficiency, we can look at 10 years ago and look at the losses for each year that we have not addressed energy efficiency. In Dubai itself, we have more than 135,000 buildings, including commercial, residential, government building, so commercial consists of shopping mall, hotels, and other building as well. So building can yield to the greatest saving potential, I think, of any sector of the economy.
I can understand that. I mean, most of the consumption, especially in the Gulf, air conditioning buildings, and I can see it's fairly simple to regulate standards for buildings when you have a new building. But when you take building as a building sector, I mean, I don't know, 99% is existing buildings. And how do you address the challenges of retrofit? It's one thing, it's easier to put a spec on a new building, to a green building. So let's say this is year 2, but the retrofit sector, let's talk about the retrofit sector for building.
Again, the retrofit as a sector, I think the new building code usually address the new building. And we know that the existing building are inefficient in general, and they will not be addressed. And as we update our green building code, I think the gap will widen because new building will become more stringent, getting closer to a net zero energy building, and then the existing building will be left alone. We have a big stock of the existing building, so we can address them, as we said, through different way. One is addressing building related to government, because this is the way we let government lead by example, and this is what we have done in Dubai to issue a directive, and within this directive we have enablers, we have responsibility matrix, and we have stakeholders, and we have also contract model. And we can say that the directive which was issued in Dubai has been one of the great enabler for both for government, because we have a mandate, and also for private sectors where they can learn and hear what is happening within the government, what is the benefit. And that's why I can say that in terms of achievement, I think both we have projects from both sides, from government and also from private in terms of quantities. And of course, building retrofit is one of the key programs that we have within the demand side management, and continue to deliver saving in terms of kilowatt hour, megawatt hour, in terms of in terms of gallon also for water. And we continue to monitor the achievement, and we continue to connect with the stakeholders. Thank you.
Very well, very well. Let's talk about the tools to enable, the execution of maybe difficult sectors like building retrofit and so on. Rashid, may I ask you to talk about the role of ESCOs in the energy efficiency market, and maybe you can also try to define or delineate for us. I mean, we hear the word super ESCO. What is the difference between what is a super ESCO? How does it differ from an ESCO? And should every country in the Middle East, we saw the Gulf countries, for examples, in super ESCOs. Should every country in MENA have a super ESCO? What models are there for super ESCOs? What's the value of super ESCO? Please go ahead.
Okay, so to simplify the wording, so the ESCO are aiming to provide an energy solution to its customer, including to have this position on the whole value chain, including the auditing, the design, the redesign, sometimes the retrofit part, implementation of the solution, until the generation of energy savings. The main goal being improved efficiency. So other possible services provided include energy infrastructure, outsourcing, energy supply, financing, until risk management. It's this comprehensiveness of the services that differentiate somehow the ESCO company from a common energy company whose main business is solely to provide the energy to its customer. Going back to the super ESCO, it's to scaling up the energy efficiency on its region by promoting the energy efficiency concept in order to gain acceptance of all stakeholders. And I think it was one of the biggest challenge of Stefan probably in Abu Dhabi. And to establish the most suitable regulation and to provide, in some cases, a kind of financial support. So it's obvious that a big value is expected from Super ESCO, and for those reasons, and because it has economic and social ecosystems, it's recommended, I guess, to establish of Super ESCO, the establishment of Super ESCO on every country. However, it's obvious that by creating more synergy between Super ESCO and they can also learn from each other based on the experience that they have.
Maybe just to put some more insight, and Stefan, please feel free to step in. I mean, super ESCOs so far, what I've seen, they're owned by the government. For developing a regulatory framework, they support standardizing contracts, and they provide funding, and they really, in the sense, they don't compete with private sector, but they're enabling private sector. So
yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So the role is really to provide projects to the ESCOs that are in that region or country. Is this
I think one
Super ESCO? I mean, can Super ESCO be private, or does it have to be started by the government? Give us a little bit more insight, please, on that, and maybe talk about examples in the region of Super ESCOs.
No, I've not seen private ESCOs being privately owned, because you have a role that gives you, one of the key role of the super access to the government buildings, because it's very difficult for a private company to work with government, because government are usually have to manage with very strict policies, and procuring energy efficiency is not an easy thing to do. So that's where the value of the Super ESCO is to really help all the government entities procure energy efficiency through the ESCOs. So that's really a value that the Super ESCO brings, because otherwise, as a private ESCO, it would be very difficult to go directly to a government entity. And if a government entity does itself initiate the work, then nothing will happen. So Super ESCO is there to really help on the government side. Obviously, it would be supported by strong regulations. I think Faisal mentioned it in Dubai. The Supreme Council of Energy is really there to put the regulation in place so that government will then move with the Super ESCO. In Abu Dhabi, it's the Department of Energy that does a similar activity. They have also a DSM and energy rationalization strategy 2030. But I think that's the way the Super ESCO is being set up. So it's very difficult to organize the Super ESCO as a private entity, because then it would not have the legitimacy, to be able to work with government. And all the Super ESCOs I know, they are owned by governments, either directly or indirectly. I would say, like through the utilities, which is the case of ADES, the case of Etihad ESCO. I think in Saudi, the Super ESCO is owned by the Public Investment Fund. I think a difference between Super ESCOs is the way they work. I think in the Middle East, most of the Super ESCOs are outsourcing to ESCOs, so they are really there to generate a market for the private ESCOs. But you have some ESCO who do the work directly themselves, and that's, for example, the case in India with the EESL Super ESCO, where they would directly buy products, install products, and do the work by themselves, not really relying on the private sector ESCO market. I think that's the difference that you would see in business models between Super ESCOs.
I mean, Super ESCOs in the region, they've handed a significant pipeline, silver platter, which is all government buildings. I mean, Saudi Arabia, that's gigawatts in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I mean, do you hear about Super ESCOs in Europe and North America? It's only the Middle East where you hear about Super ESCO. India is one example. But is it really a common model to have a Super ESCO kickstarting the market, utilizing the pipeline that they have, a golden pipeline, captive government buildings? I mean, only here is in the Middle East. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But this model is this model applied in Europe or in Ireland or North America? Super ESCO, or it's all just given to the private sector? Regulate the market and give it to the private sector. The banks will invest. Government role is to really provide guarantees and lead to de-risk the business model, and they execute. I'm trying to debate. Please allow me to go a little bit deeper into that. So I hear about Super ESCOs in the Middle East. That's about it.
I think in Ireland there is some work there.
Go ahead, Rashid.
I think the model of energy performance contract was born in Europe. But the model of the Super ESCO is much more mature here in UAE. I had the chance to work 18 years in Europe, and the model is completely different. The level of commitment is completely different. But the fact that my feeling is whatever we open a Super ESCO, it's a huge booster of energy efficiency. We've seen that in Dubai, we've seen that in Abu Dhabi, we've seen that in Saudi Arabia. A few months ago, a Super ESCO was established to tackle port facility sectors as well as industrial one. And I think it's, as it has been said by Stefan, of course, the Super ESCO is somehow the sustainability arms of governmental sectors, but they can also act to support some private sector that are not enough mature when it comes to the sustainability. Because not all the private sector are the same page, are the same level. Some of them they build and they establish some sustainability department, some consultancy companies supporting them, and they have sometimes some strong corporate commitment when it comes, for example, to tourism, hospitality, hotels, and so on. You know that the group, without doing advertising, but a group like Accor, they have a strong commitment in terms of sustainability. But we had facing also several private sector that they are keen to start to do something when it comes to energy efficiency, but because they don't have enough maturity, maybe they need support of CEBC.
Sure. No, I agree with the notion, and I think as long as we have clarity where the government is really there to enable the private sector, not to compete with the private sector, I think this is where that logic comes through. And there are positive and negatives of the experience in Abu Dhabi. You hear about the same thing in Saudi Arabia, and there is lessons learned. And the model, when it's moved from Dubai to Saudi to Abu Dhabi, it's not always 100%. I mean, it has to be modified slightly. John, you were going to comment about the energy. How is the energy efficiency market in Ireland? Tell us about the examples.
Yes, well, the market's not too bad, to be fair. Yeah, the concept of the super ESCO now is certainly a new one to me. I've not really experienced it too much. In Ireland and GB, there's no such entity that exists. But I see quite a lot of value in it, as has been alluded to by the panel. It's an incubator for the ESCO industry, essentially, you know, and it facilitates a lot of connections, and it adds a lot of confidence and accreditation to an industry that's really just developing in the Middle East. As I've kind of seen, like, you know, we've had similar issues in Ireland in particular, like where we as a utility have been a legitimizing entity that have come in with an energy services offering, and because of the established relationships we have with the people of Ireland, then that has facilitated a lot of business there, which has been fantastic. Now, I must specify that our energy service business is entirely ring-fenced from our utilities business, so a completely separate entity and completely separate from our supply business. But what I would say is that I see a lot of value in this type of relationship with a government-based super ESCO that is able to standardize and regulate an industry as a whole, is able to provide that accreditation, which really essentially gives people confidence, because if you just introduce an ESCO type business or any type of business without any kind of regulation, then you kind of run the risk of people with vested interest in various kind of technologies, or, you know, going down various routes. And the main aim I see here is to serve the policy of increased energy efficiency, and as well as serve the end customer. And if you introduce a situation where places aren't regulated, you have ESCOs that are primarily solar providers, or primarily DSM providers, or primarily building installators. And if they have a vested interest in one of those without being agnostic, then there could be an argument that the customer isn't really served and the interest of that ESCO is served. And I think a super ESCO is a good entity for regulating that business, would be my take on it.
Sure, especially when you have, I mean, markets like the Middle East that started from it didn't exist and need to be created. So that can be a very vital tool in creating that super ESCOs. Staying with ESCOs, I mean, let's talk about the business models. I mean, Rashid, you've mentioned performance-based contracts. You know, they started in Europe and they're being applied. I hear ESCOs and clients complaining that, you know, performance-based contracts never work in MENA. Defining the baseline, tracking the performance, and tying that to a payment can be a headache. Let's talk about performance-based contracts and the good and the bad, and what other models can we apply. I mean, I've dealt with the companies here in Jordan, actually, where we have very high tariffs and we don't have a super ESCO. And there is discussion that, you know, there is a value to create a super ESCO here in Jordan to really regulate the market and develop it. Otherwise, it's a single-off project that happens every 5 years and there is no continuity. And this is, I think, one of the main values of ESCO. They create that continuity, create that fill the gaps with the local players, the ESCOs that exist in the market, and kickstart the engine, as they say. But are we only relying on performance-based contracts? Are there any other ways where an ESCO can talk to a hotel and say, you know what, your savings is X, I'll we both agree that I'll easily achieve half X based on the performance that you have, and you can pay me fixed payments for 5 years. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So of course there is the level of the business model itself. The major one are the performance-based contract and the shared savings. What we are doing right now, so in addition of the usual role of the ESCO as one of the major sustainability partner of our client, we should be on continuous creativity to assess any way, lever to create value. One of the approach that we are promoting is to combine, we have two approaches that we are promoting. The first one is to combine facility management and energy management. Indeed, when we have an energy performance contract with the committed energy savings target, we can propose on the top of that to extend the O&M beyond the asset and their to put in place additional savings and vice versa. I mean, on all our facility management contract right now, we are including the energy management components and value proposition in order to support the client to reach their sustainability target.
Is this a must for Innova? Do you have to take a facility management contract and do an energy efficiency contract? Does it have to be the two have to be combined for you, or you can?
Yes, we always put it. We always put it. For us, make it as business as usual. Either if it's included on the, we are seeing that if it's included, of course, we need to reach this expectation. If not, we are adding it as value creation to the client, and we are open to any business model that we can bring. The second model that also we are promoting is what we call P4P, pay for performance. It's a model with zero capex, based on the digital, based on the deep monitoring, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and so on. We can propose, for the time being, mostly for the client that we have it as FM client, because our operation is there, because we have a well-known of the operating condition of the assets, of the building, and so on. So we are proposing this offer called the P4P, where we are based on thanks to the digital and the big data analysis, we can optimize more and more the operating condition of the asset itself, and we can, for the time being, we can commit with this model between 5 and 10% of additional savings that we use to propose it on share savings, which means everything above this targeted line, it might be shared between us and the client. So it's an incentive for us to be always on the top of what we can do. And obviously, it's a net income to the client because they didn't invest any single dirhams.
I mean, I can see if when you combine the facility management, digitalization, monitoring, and you're very close to the resources and the consumption, then that income performance-based contract can be easier. Stefan, can you comment? I mean, is it really, is the performance-based contracts are the only way to go, or are there other business models that can be looked at?
There are many business models that can be used. In our case, one of the key elements for us is that we finance the project ourselves, so we don't have the clients to pay for the project. So in that case, we need to have we use contracts that are performance based, because when I commit some budget on the project, I want to be sure that the savings are going to be there, because I need somehow to reimburse the capital that we've been getting. So it really depends how things are being done. But if for example, if you don't the project, then there are a lot of different models, and I think what we see more and more is exactly what Rashid mentioned, which is those with the coming of new technologies, the fact that the buildings are more and more connected, have more and more sensors. You can have software-based solutions that would optimize a lot the use of the building, and those are very cheap. So there's a way to make savings. Obviously, that's not, you will not change completely. If it's an old building with old equipment, with really inefficient, you will make savings. A lot more by reinvesting into replacing the equipment. So it also depends, I think, on the level of commitment and investment that the clients want to do. And obviously the how the buildings are. If it's a very recent building, you would not change anything. You would just add maybe the few tools and software tools to optimize it further. But it's a very old buildings, like chillers are end of life. You really need to do something. Then it's worth going into a deeper retrofit with that the client cannot necessarily finance, so you would need someone to finance, and then you need commitments with guarantees, etc., etc. So, yeah, there are a lot of different possibilities, but
okay,
results also are different. If you can have certain solution that will give you like 5 to 15% saving, and you have other solutions where you invest deeper and you can get up to 40-50% saving. So depends also the level of commitment, what the building owners are looking for, what they want to do.
Yeah. So let's talk about mechanisms to enable ESCOs and to enable the market. I mean, it was mentioned. I think Faisal talked about customer awareness. So often you talk to building owners, building managers, and you talk about you propose energy efficiency, and it's not really a priority to them. Without removal of tariff subsidies, obviously, I mean, their pockets are not really impacted, and it's a nice thing to have. There's always a discussion that we have to take this discussion to the board, not to the manager of the building, take it to the executives that see the bottom line and see the bigger picture. But in terms of mechanisms to enable the market, I mean, Stefan, you mentioned that for us it's easy. Others will finance the project, but to grow a market, you really have to do the snowball and the snowball effect take place, and it's always about regulation and finance. Dubai, I mean, they're going at it. There is a very detailed regulatory framework, and finance is still somewhat lacking. I mean, we don't see private banks investing in energy efficiency projects that I know of. How do you see, what mechanisms do you see in place, and how the two evolve? Should regulation come first, or should finance come first? I mean, you're doing it yourself, Stefan. The government is investing in projects, but is this or this model will shift to be more of a private sector finance with a clear regulatory framework? Maybe talk a little bit, and this is for the audience, for the panelists to discuss.
My own view is that regulation is absolutely needed, because without that, people have a lot of things to do in general, and if you don't have the strict regulations, people will be a bit lazy and do the easy things first, and not energy efficiency. It's a lot more easier to put solar panels on your roof. It's a lot more sexy. It's nice. People will talk about it. So people would focus on this, but not necessarily looking at inside the basement of the building, how are the pumps working and this kind of thing. So if you don't a little bit force the people to do it, then it's going to be difficult to. The price signal is another thing, obviously. And some countries over the last few years did a very good study on the tariffs in the region. Some of the countries in the region have used the price, the electricity price, as a signal for people to move, and I think it's a very powerful tool. And I think Dubai did it also I don't remember which year, but it was a long time ago. If you suddenly raise the tariffs, then suddenly people realize that, there is a cost related to that, and then suddenly my bills are increasing. I should do something. So that's something that can be used as well. It's not necessarily easy to do and not very popular in general, but this happens, and this is very powerful in the government sector. I think Kuwait did it where they re-multiplied the government tariff by 10 or something like this a few years ago. So yeah, this is things that can help to do projects.
Okay. Rashid, you want to comment on this? On mechanisms to enable ESCOs?
Yeah, so I would say all levels are most welcome. Regulation, finance partner, and so on. Now, coming back to regulation, we can consider also Super ESCO as a regulatory entities as well. I think it's considered, it puts some trust and some confidence in the market because it's managed mostly by the governmental entity, and it's used to be considered as a trusted third party, which is good to make the market more confident. Regarding the regulation, it might set, for example, we can expect might incentive regarding sustainability commitment, and regarding the finance partners, they might get also some advantage by financing the energy performance contract, which is somehow a green action, and they can take some advantages because when we are doing some business model and so on, we do believe that this kind of partner, they can reach easily an ERR around the 15% and even more, which is quite interesting. And also they can have this dual advantage. The first one, to have some good business model, allowing them to reach an interesting ERR, but also to highlight the fact that they are a part of some green initiative.
Very well, very well. I want to shift a little bit now, talk about what I think is an interesting point. In MENA, there is a strong coupling between economic growth and energy intensity. And there's always discussion, how can you decouple, how can you grow the GDP and without really putting more carbon or more energy into the economy? Of course, if your energy is 100% clean, then put as much energy as you want, and that's not a problem. Again, we focused, I mean, we're talking demand side, we're talking buildings, we're talking consumption. But if you look at energy efficiency, it can go across all sectors, across the energy value chain. It covers water, it can go talk about power generation, transmission, distribution. And what are your views on other sectors? I mean, what can we do to get to what is needed, I guess, to define in terms of energy efficiency when it comes to power generation value chain? I mean, maybe we can take Dubai as an example. I mean, Faisal, we've discussed before, and you told Murad, our focus is buildings, which is clear. Energy consumption in industrial sector, say, is a bit limited. But what else can be? Are you looking at? I mean, you're in charge of demand side management, but what other sectors, energy efficiency as it relates to the value chain of power generation, transmission, distribution, or even other sectors like water or industry? What's happening in Dubai on that?
Yeah, I think before we get into this, I just want to spend 1 minute talking about, I think, building retrofits as Dubai, I think, is leading. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes, I think since Dubai is leading, I think, the region in terms of number of buildings that have been retrofitted, I think it's fair to say, I think we have basically limited option, and the limited option we were able to push this initiative toward reaching good result. I mean, we started in 2016, and now we're in 2021. I think more than 10,000 buildings have already been retrofitted. I think when we say we finance ourselves, this model already exists long back, maybe 50 years ago. That's why we have the ESCO model, which basically you don't finance yourself. There is a model basically to help the owner, to help whether you're a hotel owner or a shopping mall, there is a financial model basically to help grow this market. So I just want to say that it's very important to have the ESCO model. Yes, we're not perfect in terms of MENA region, but I think dealing with such initiative for the first time, just maybe 4 years ago, and reaching such result, I think it's a positive note. And on the other question that you have asked, yes, there are other things also. In Dubai, we don't look at industries a lot because industries consume maybe 10% of our energy. It's basically building is the key. Then we have also transport. Transport, we know that electrical vehicle and hybrid are part of our acceleration. I heard before, maybe early in the morning, some of the maybe negative thing on electric and maybe hybrid. Yes, we are. I think we will not be able to shift to electric vehicle like 2020 to 2023. We could reach 100,000 EV in the market. That will not be possible. That's why we want to move gradually toward what we did in Dubai. In 2016, we had only 500 green vehicles, including hybrid and EV, and today it's more than 10,000. If you move gradually, I think you will not disturb the economy, you will not disturb the infrastructure, whether it is for EV, whether it is for power generation. You don't want to have a jump, let's say, to 50% in 2 or 3 years. This will not help us or serve the economy. You want to have a gradual shift toward, I think, reaching the sustainability. And this is what we have adopted without also subsidy. And for water also, we have the integrated water strategy, which is basically utilizing recycled water more and more and for different purposes of use. I think we're moving toward increasing the share of recycled water. As we speak today, the share of desal is more than 55%, and the share of treated water is only 27%. And we want to reach close to 50% by 2030. And there are many projects that are being executed.
This figure is Dubai, right? Not UAE, Dubai.
In Dubai, yes. And some will be executed in the future. And our target, as I said, to reach a higher share for recycled water. And also there are many pilot projects which, including energy storage, it's still not mature, including hydrogen generation, hydrogen vehicles. So whatever is not, I think, mature, did not reach the level of solar or EV, I think we should continue to do more pilot, including net zero energy building also, and the demand side management. We continue to do pilot, we continue to connect with the key stakeholder to ensure that we reach maturity, and then we make it part of our strategy.
I want to build on a point that you mentioned, green mobility. UAE has been leading. Dubai, United Arab Emirates has been leading green mobility. And if you look at the reports, what's happening elsewhere, I mean, the discussion now is at least 80% of cars on the road by 2050 will be EVs, more or less, or some form of it. Really, I mean, the notion of consumer choice plays a big role in EVs. I mean, the government has a role to play. There is I hear you from a regulatory standpoint that we have to transition our way into it. But really, the push and the pull, the market dynamics, I mean, EVs are all consumer choice. I mean, I was shocked to see how many Twitter videos and Instagram videos of Saudis, presenting their electric vehicle, and they're very proud of it. You know what I mean? In Saudi Arabia, and they're showcasing the car, and they like it. And this uptake, I think, is happening. You have more options, different brand names of electric vehicle. Tesla is not only the only company out there. Governments in the region, Saudi Arabia is investing in Lucid and others. If we look at the green mobility, what's the impact? I mean, there is a huge impact on demand side management when there is an uptake of EVs. I mean, you're talking about adding, if I have a small car, I don't know, 20, 30 kilowatt hour, charge the battery if I come home empty, if it's a small car. And adding 20, 30 kilowatt hour to an average size home, aside from EV charging, there's thousands. I hear you, Faisal, that the uptake has to be linear, or we have to transition into it. But honestly, this is not in full control of any government. It's a consumer choice at the end. And if prices drop, people will demand EVs, and they will complain, I need my charging station. And how is the impact on demand side management in terms of a load profile and also EV charging once that happens? I mean, is needed to happen? Maybe tell us Dubai perspective, Dubai perspective. Are you ready for it? And do you think it's going to be 3 years or 5 years? I mean, do you even control it? Can you control it? I don't think you can. Give us some more insight on the demand-side management and EVs.
Yeah, I think you brought up many points. I just want to say that as you clean your supply side in terms of cleaning the grid by increasing the share of renewable energy, I think when EV comes, I think it gets penetrated. I think it is fair to say that some of the people say that your supply is heavily dependent on fossil fuel. So I think when you continue to increase the share of renewable, I think it's fair to say that EV penetration will make sense to us. So in terms of the math, if you say, will this affect the or impact, will the charging station impact the grid or impact the supply side? We can apply this on Dubai. Let's say our target is to reach by 2030, 100,000 car. So 100,000 car itself, if you take one vehicle, it will consume, let's say per 100 kilometer, 20 kilowatt hour. If it's 100,000, it is maybe 2 million kilowatt hour, equivalent to less than 0.10, I think, terawatt hour, which is basically hardly anything in terms of percentage, if you say whether it would affect the supply side. That's why if we move, I think, gradually toward our strategy in terms of increasing the share of both EV and hybrid, it will not have that effect in terms of adding more power generation capacity to the supply side, especially when we have energy efficiency program, which basically make building more efficient. This will also help the situation.
Stefan, do you agree with this view?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of views on EVs because that's not really my area of expertise. But
from impact on the demand side management generation, I agree. I mean, what Faisal saying makes sense. But from on the demand side, not the generation side.
Yeah, I think for us there is an interest to link as EVs are going to be more and more common. Obviously, they will be linked to the buildings because you need to charge them, connect them somewhere. So usually to the building. The ideas from clients of, as part of the retrofit project, adding charging points. So this is something. And then we'll manage the thing, but I don't think it's a lot controllable how people recharge, etc., etc. So you will just have to take it as part of the load of the building.
All right. Rashid, I want to come back to you. You're VP of Technology at Innova. Tell us what's new in terms of technologies. You talked about AI being an enabler of ESCO, performance-based contracts and ESCOs in general. Tell us a little bit more maybe about new technologies and AI, the role of digitization in this field.
Okay, I will try to do shortly because right, you are opening a very large door, and now the digital is everywhere, every day. When you wake up in the morning using your smart watch until the night when you sleep with this famous blue light help you to sleep like a baby. So the digital is obviously is everywhere. So we'll become to something obvious now. And soon we will talk about the digital like drinking water in the tap. So it's going to be something as usual. Going back to the topic itself, so I would say that the role of the ESCO became crucial on that matter by playing the role by handling equipment and so on. The digital solution, the IT network, cybersecurity issue, and so on. All of those components and by committing on the top of there, it take a huge place in our business. I want to say also that the digital landscape should be built as a city. Better is it's urbanized, more efficient, sustainable, and resilient. So at Enova, what we are building, or the way where we are building our digital strategy, is based on two drivers. The first one is the business value, and the second one is I would say the business challenges, and those are materialized on several layers. The first one is data collection, because the data is the raw material when it comes to optimization, digital, and so on. And thanks to the IoT, smart meter, BMS systems, and so on, any buildings, any facilities are providing a lot of valuable data for us. The second layers is analytics. So we make the decision on what low-coding solution. Why? Because we want to engage and to involve our analysts, energy specialists, and so on, more and more on digital. So it has to become like tools as usual, by promoting what we call self-services business intelligence solution, by providing tailor-made reporting, because each client, each facilities, or each client should be unique on our contract, and also client dashboard. It might be on B2B perspective, like the dashboard for the sustainability manager of the facilities and so on, or on B2B2C perspective, which means to give to our industrial clients, some tools and so on, to change the behavior of the occupant, and to make more awareness on their facilities. The third layer is the deep analysis. On deep analysis is providing ad hoc analysis catalog to put the monitoring and the optimization in industrialized way, statistical analysis, and also data quality. Data quality is very important, because without that, we cannot trust what we are showing and what we are doing. We cannot, if you have, for example, KPIs which is green, but it's green based on 30% of the data, we cannot trust this KPI. We don't have enough data to say it's green. And on the top of that, the fourth layer is the decision making. By using features like data mining, machine learning, artificial intelligence, we can also build on predictive models, demand-side response, because when we are tackling both production side as well as distribution side, the systems becomes more and more complex. So we need some powerful algorithms and so on. The last but not least features is what we call the condition-based maintenance, where the purpose is to bring a dual value for the client. The first one is to perform the O&M and so on, not only based on the PPM itself and with the regular schedule, but we will interfere, we will go to the field, we will acting on the O&M area when it needs. And on the top of this optimization of the O&M, it also has a second effect based on energy efficiency.
It's like you said, it's all about the data, the confidence level in the data, and how you process it to take it all the way to the level of the executive board and enable them to make decisions in a simple manner. I'm curious, Enova, you develop solutions software in-house, or do you use off the shelf? What's your recommendation?
It's both, because our position is very interesting, is very challenging, because we are making watching market. We are assessing the most suitable solution for our industry. But we are acting as an integrator, and we are holding the whole liability. So it's not the startup, it's not the network supplier, it's not the IoT provider that are holding the responsibility and the commitment when it comes to the savings. So that means that we have to be very strong when it comes to the establishment of the right protocol to assess the market product. If we don't find in the market the product that might fit what we want to provide to the client, we can also develop it in-house. So now the mix. We have the mix because we are not. We don't have only one single solution that we are using for everything. So we have a kind of a box based on the value creation, and on top of that, we are providing our services.
So you have an integrator perspective. You have a box of tools, and you use what's the right tool, and you can integrate around it if need be in-house.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I said earlier is really the matter, or I would say the urbanization things is very, very important because this is what will sustain your systems, bring trust. The purpose is not to have additional load to and so on, but to save time of our analysts and so on. Yeah.
With the least cost possible.
Absolutely.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah. I want to remind our audience that to submit their questions. I think we've addressed the points that were mentioned, and I also want to remind everyone that right after this panel, Aleph from CEBC and Rida from Energetics will be presenting the updated energy efficiency report, looking at not just GCC, but this time actually we expanded and looked at other countries such as Jordan, Egypt, and Morocco in terms of the price signal and what's happening with the tariffs in the different sectors. We have a couple of more minutes. John, I want to come back to you about something that we discussed briefly. There is always a debate. Renewables, solar is dominant in the region, obviously. I mean, the sun is shining even in Ireland. They can see the world. And energy efficiency. Do they enable each other, or do they fight against each other? How do you see energy efficiency supporting a bigger deployment of renewables? And maybe tell us a little bit about the role of flexibility. I mean, renewables is flexible generation. I think you called it asynchronous, non-synchronous generation per se, and demand side management also adds some flexibility, and that too can marry. Maybe tell us a little bit more about this topic, please. We have another 2 minutes.
Okay, a quick blurb, I suppose. No, look, absolutely. I think as we discussed, like, I would see that the overall end goal of energy efficiency is to minimize carbon impact and reduce waste. And I see that the synergies there are from taking a highly efficient energy source, typically, such as potentially wind or solar with a low running fuel cost, and then combining that with the flexibility to turn up and turn down, or to shift your load profile depending on what way the grid is. I think that's really the key from an overarching strategy. So as I mentioned earlier, ESB are a utility, and as such we take a utility approach to dealing with things. And to enable increasing renewable, we need to start unlocking some flexibility. We need to change at a low level behavior about when things are switched on, when things are switched off, but also utilizing some technology solutions. As Sheila mentioned, utilizing the analytics to see, where are the pinch points in the grid? What can we do to shift load to alleviate that? How can we help the system? How can we make the system more robust? And when the system's more robust, we can enable increasing renewables. There's a system services market that's emerged in Ireland over the recent years, which provides financial incentive to be able to support the grid during periods when renewables are high, because that is when the frequency is most unstable on the grid. And this is very exciting, obviously. And while that can be at a level of capital investment in things like storage, which are very versatile, but also still quite new and still relatively cost intensive, or it can be demand response, which is again, high volumes of data, a lot of analytics to marry those two together. And if you think about how those could be used in conjunction with a larger utility, then they're actually quite a powerful tool. Because demand response, not only does it alleviate the overall base load, it also does help to reduce the cost of increasing the cost of infrastructure because they all have a capital cost associated with that, and to enable more renewables to come on. And then just from an industrial or commercial side, battery storage is a technology that's kind of coming in, and we've seen it come very much in vogue in recent years. And it's still possibly not at a price point that's suitable for where electricity is cheap. Now, we've seen removal of subsidies and things like that, and that's been a very good enabler of energy efficiency overall, I would say. But I think if you're going to start going up to the next level, which is investing in capital assets and unlocking flexibility, then you need to do more than just it's about more than just what the kilowatt hour price is. It's more about the added value of service. What is the carbon impact of what I'm doing? What are the grid services that I can provide back to stabilize the grid? How can I incentivize this? And how can I take what I would like to say a utility approach to the overall message of energy efficiency? And that's kind of where I see it going in the future. More synergies. So,
true. I mean, it's not about the kilowatt hour. It's about managing the kilowatt hour. I mean, unfortunately, we ran out of time. I have a few other points. This is very interesting. I mean, there are topics. I mean, Stefan, I hope you're working on a tender for a negative load. It would be nice to see tenders in the region for give it to the private sector to reduce the load by so much. And with a load profile, that would open up storage, renewables, solar, demand side management, all of it together. It's all tied to each other, as we all know. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Faisal Rashid, Dubai Supreme Energy Council, John Rafferty, ESP, Stefan De Gentile, Adis, Rashid Hamida, Innova. I would like to thank you for your time. This was very informative, and thank the audience for attending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Wright, John, Faisal, and all the attendees. Very exciting panel and very informative. So now we have 30 minutes for networking break again. So please go ahead and try the networking section on the left side of your screen. And we will be back at it's actually 15 minutes, sorry. We'll be back in 15 minutes exactly. So please join us back at 1 p.m. Dubai time, Gulf Standard Time. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please make sure again to put them in the chat of the event on the right-hand side, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can after the event, because unfortunately we'll not have time for discussions or questions and answers at the end of each presentation. So with that, I would like to welcome the first presenter in the session, Mr. Stefan Gitunga, who is Regional Energy and Environment.
There's some.
Do you hear me, Stefan? So, Stefan, if you hear me, please go ahead and you can start your presentation.
There is some disturbance, I think. Myself, Stephen? Yeah, there is some disturbance, I think. Okay, now let me go ahead. Now it is good. I'll be talking about the some examples from UNDP. Hello? Yeah, there is some disturbance, I think. Okay, now let me go ahead. Now it is good. I'm feeling some delay, and I can hear myself. Some examples from UNDP.
I think, Stefan, you are opening twice. You need to close the other link. If you hear me, Stefan. So that the conference is opened on your computer twice, so you need to close one of them, so you don't hear the echo. Now, Stefan, I hope it's okay now.
Is it okay now? Good. Thank you so much for your guidance. I didn't realize I had opened. Actually, there were three. So that's why I was feeling the echo. Thank you very much for inviting myself and UNDP to participate in this summit. It's an honor, and I'm very excited to participate in it. Today, I'll be sharing some of the work UNDP has been doing over the years in the MENA region, especially concentrating on the examples of innovative private-public sector partnership that we have been doing for clean energy transition in MENA. Next slide, please. First, I want to sort of take you through the things that we see as UNDP as tipping points that are shaping financing and investment in this region. There has been, especially for the last 2 years, there has been a lot of concerns about, inequality and youth unemployment. There has been awareness of the scale of subsidies and how it is impacting the economies and social safety nets. In fact, that has led to a lot of activities towards reforming fossil fuel subsidies. And we have had a lot of linkages and recognition of planetary crisis, including climate change. And an interesting one of the tipping points which came because of COVID and other things, which brought to the realization that there has been a lot of inequality, especially in the digital world, and also the fact that part of this region is affected by conflicts and many other things. All these things are sort of shaping the way UNDP is rethinking how to approach sustainable energy and clean energy work in the region. Next slide. I just wanted to sort of give a quick, before I go to my examples, a quick a show of how things are moving. It looks like the trajectory is positive, which is good. If you look at what since the last 10 years, from 2008, 2018, there has been quite movement, in terms of investments and financing of renewable energy projects in the region, which is a very good positive trajectory. Next slide, please. Here I wanted to show the summary of, because when I talk about the examples that I'll be talking about, I would like everybody to understand how UNDP looks at the whole thing. The major activity of UNDP is to try to develop that viable ecosystem that you allow private sector investment and financing in the whole sector of energy transition. And the main work that we do is we work with governments in the region to build their institutional capacity, especially when looking at long-term policies that can allow the private sector to feel comfortable to invest in renewable energy. The major, when policies are short-term, for example, 5 years, it becomes very difficult for private sector to be able to have the confidence to invest. So we tend to work with government to support them develop these long-term policies and regulatory frameworks that helps to incentivize investments. The other thing we look at, of course, is data and knowledge management, because a private sector needs to know what is there, what are the resources that are available in terms of renewable energy resources, everything that is happening both in the confection of fuels to renewable energy fuels. The other thing that we work very much with governments and the private sector is to try to develop new business models. For example, long-term agreements, PPAs, things that you allow the activities to happen on the ground. If you look at those two activities, they are happening at the upstream level, at the policy level with governments. But we also have the downstream activities, of technologies on the ground. These type of activities, we do them, and the examples that I'll be talking about is a reflection of this. Are things that you can call them sort of piloting activities, because when the private sector comes, is expected that that kind of activities is scaled up because the activities we do are not heavy investments. These are grant-funded projects which are small to show some pilots. The last part that we do is we foster innovations. Recently, UNDP moved to a big push on innovations, on the way we do business in terms of development. And we have even started what we call UNDP Accelerator Labs to help in rethinking, the way we do business in terms of working with government, the private sector, and everybody else to support development activities on the ground. Next slide, please. Now, this all the work that we do, we can summarize it in, for example, because UNDP is in over 130 countries. We share best practices all over the world based on what UNDP has been doing, and we bring it to the region in terms of energy transition. We also, as I said, work very closely with the governments to deal with policies. And one of the ones in this region that we do is helping the development of national renewable energy action plans and also national energy efficiency action plans, REAPs and NEAPs, which of course sort of forms a roadmap for where the government want to go. We also support innovative financing, including green bonds, leveraging MDBs and multilateral climate finance institutions, because we are part of the GEF implementation agencies and also the GCF. So, and other what we can call global funds, climate change funds. We, the other thing that we do very much is to try to align renewable energy, sustainable energy activities to sustainable development goals, so that the governments can, we can link the energy activities to what governments are doing on the ground. And finally, of course, it's the scaling up of activities through accelerated activities, including new technologies. Second slide, please. Here is just a summary of, when you take all those activities that we do, we can say we are supporting, incentivizing innovation, research, development, and diffusion of technologies, renewable technologies. And I just wanted to show how all these are linked to the public sector and private sector. And as you can see there, the public sector and the private sector works in concert to be able to achieve the long-term goals. And now I'll go to some of the examples of the work that we do. Next slide. Yeah, UNDP has a big portfolio of activities in this region. And here I just mentioned a few of them. They range from small projects that we deploy technologies to projects that are dealing with policies and regulatory frameworks in different parts of the region. And the most important thing of all these projects is that there is close sharing of experiences and lessons from each of the projects to another country or another project, which helps to build what you can call the knowledge for one particular aspect to another. Next slide, please. And here, just to give a few examples of what we have been doing. As I mentioned before, most of our work has to do with developing capacities for governments to have the benefits that can help investments. And I just wanted to mention some two case studies here on Tunisia and Lebanon, where we have been supporting de-risking of renewable energy investments, looking at mostly policy de-risking activities so that investors can increase their financing and investment in the region. And I'll also be talking a little bit in more details about a project that we have been doing in Egypt in terms of energy efficiency and how we have worked with the private sector to move it forward. Next slide. Yeah, the Egypt project is a very interesting project. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this in the sense that it involved a very innovative aspect whereby the grant money that we got, which was 19 million, was shared with the private sector to experiment on some activities, and we worked with the private sector to pilot some of the activities with some of the bank, like the Commercial Bank of Egypt and others. And the idea was to introduce LED lighting to reduce consumption, which was quite successful. And because of that, many private sector agencies started coming in, and they actually started supporting the activities through their own resources. The grant part, the 25% grant that we gave, was just to support the piloting, but because of that, other private sector agencies start coming in to do the same activities. And I possibly it's because of the investment payback period was quite low. It was just 6 months. You could recoup the investments. Next slide, please. Just to give a little bit more details on some of the activities, it was a 19 million project, and which is quite small in terms of investment, and it's grant money mainly from the GF. And the interesting part of this project is the energy savings that it resorted to by the time it finished. Of course, the project is still going on in terms of activities, but this is just to say, when we closed the project, the kind of savings that we got was quite substantial. As you can see, from 4.35 TWH to 5.4, which is quite a lot. It was equivalent to about 1,040 megawatts of a coal-fired plant, if you look at it that way. And we had about 43 pilot projects with different private sector agencies and also the public sector combined. And as I say, the most innovative part of that project is the fact that there was this 25% cost sharing between the private sector and the public sector. And now, as we speak, these activities have become sustainable in Egypt. In most of the hotels in Egypt are using these type of technologies in their lighting system. But it moved from lighting to also heating and cooling. So it was not just limited to lighting. Next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit more about a project we did. We have been doing in Lebanon for the last 15 years. It's called CEDRO. CEDRO project, as now we are in CEDRO 5. We started with CEDRO 1, CEDRO 2 until now. And it has done quite a lot of work in which cannot, of course, be summarized in one or two slides. But the most important thing to note there is that CEDRO has done quite a lot of work in trying to remove barriers that can allow market activities in renewable energy. All sorts of renewable energies, from solar to wind to biomass and everything else. And the main activities the main thing that we are doing is to ensure that there is the regulatory framework is there are credit lines, there are, all the things that could be done. And for CEDRO 5, the kind of CO2 emission reduction is estimated at 1664 tons. That is excluding the other phases of CEDRO, CEDRO 1 to 4. And it is expected to create quite a lot of employment and savings of estimated of about 273 euros for CEDRO 5 alone, just for comparison. And that web there that I'm showing there is just to show the kind of things that are happening in Lebanon in terms of policies and government activities. As you can see, it's a mix. It's a mixture of successes and failures in some aspects. But just to say that this project has been very successful in terms of attracting in private sector investments in Lebanon. Next slide, please. And now I want to talk about a very innovative project that we are starting now. It's a new project. It's still under development. It's a partnership between UNDP, ELENA, and LECRI. And the project will be, we are designing it as a platform to support green recovery in the region, after the COVID and its economic downturn. And what we are expecting is that this project will help implement the ALAP Sustainable Energy Strategy, which is, as you might be aware, the Sustainable Energy Strategy will guide the ALAP countries through the League of Arab States to implement various activities ranging from renewables, energy efficiency, and energy access. And one of the major aspects is Pan-Arab Clean Energy Initiative, which focuses primarily on renewable energy. So this platform is focused in helping implementing that, and it will look at the de-risking of sustainable energy financing and investments for all stakeholders. It is, as I say, tailored to bring about green recovery using sustainable energy in terms of reducing inequalities, dealing with planetary crisis, and also powering a very diversified economic growth in the region. One of the major highlights of this project is that everything will be looked at in terms of innovations. Innovations in financing, new business models, looking at the business models that has been there and new ones that, new technologies and investment. As you are aware, this region now it's becoming, there are a lot of interest in, for example, green hydrogen, technologies like those, technologies like e-mobility, and also digitalization of the whole energy sector, all these things. So this project will be also looking at all this and supporting activities to do with that. Next slide, please. Yes, the main outcomes of this project, of course, is increased financing and investment in the region as we implement the ALAP Sustainable Energy Strategy. It will also help to enhance integration of sustainable energy and other development priorities. As I mentioned before, this is one of the biggest pillars of UNDP, linking energy with other development priorities. And also, it has a special focus on closing the energy gap in LDCs in the region. There are not many, but where they exist, we would like to close the energy gap. And also for countries that have had problems with, conflicts and fragility, this project will also focus some of the activities there. Next slide, please. In a nutshell, this project will, at the end, help increased actions related to policies, regulatory frameworks, institutional capacity of governments, data management, and also enhanced readiness for financing and investments. I would like to mention that we are currently looking for partners and stakeholders, and those listening to what I'm talking about now, you are all welcome to contact us to see how you can participate in this project. It's still in development, so we can easily accommodate different stakeholders in the project. Over. This is my last slide.
Thanks so much. Very interesting. It's good to know about the work the UNDP does in the region. We have been working with the UNDP for a long time, and we're very proud of the partnership and looking forward to working with you further on the project and on different projects as well. So thanks again, Stefan. And with that, I'm not sure if our next presenter, Azmi from Eurodor, is on. If not, I would like to have Tariq from Massen first, then we can have Azmi after. So if Azmi is not here yet, okay, let's have Tariq. So we have Azmi. Excellent.
Hello,
Okay.
Ahmed.
How are you?
Very good. Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Very good. So we are now live, Azmi. So you can try to share your screen and start. And sorry, Tariq will take your presentation after. So Azmi, please go ahead.
All right. Can you see my screen?
We see it, but it's not full screen.
What about now?
Okay, there might be an issue. So if you don't mind, we can share it from our end because we have been having issues with the full screen. So we can share it from. Yeah.
From your side, okay.
You can just stop sharing, then we'll share.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Many thanks for the Clean Energy Business Council for having me and Yellow Door Energy as part of your annual summit. It is a pleasure, actually, to be here with you. My name is Azmi Salam, and I am the VP of Project Management at Yellow Door Energy. I started my journey with Yellow Door Energy in 2017 to oversee a successful project implementation in Jordan and MENA region. Today, I will talk about innovative solar projects in MENA region and specifically in Jordan. And on the screen, you can see one of these projects. It is called Classic Fashion. I'll talk more about this project later in the presentation. Next slide, please. In the next 15 minutes, I will brief an overview for Yellow Door Energy, which I am presenting and very, very proud to be working with. I will discuss innovation in a form of a solar power purchase agreements. And to bring it all to life, I will share case studies about 2 of our own projects with some additional technologies and insights. Next one, Ahmed. Starting now with our story, Yellow Door Energy is the leading solar developer in the region with more than 120 megawatt of solar PV projects. We operate in the commercial and industrial space, helping businesses to save money and to switch to clean energy. We were founded in 2015 in Jordan and the United Arab Emirates. We were expanded into 3 more countries, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Bahrain. We want to be your sustainable energy partner, not only in solar, but on a completely wide range of solutions such as energy efficiency, energy storage, and hybrid systems. The next one, Ahmed. Our continuous growth, of course, and strategy development would not be possible without our important international shareholders that have been supporting us since day one, believing in our strategy and skills to succeed in this business. Our shareholders include the International Finance Corporation, Mitsui, Apicorp, and Equinor. Combining all of shareholder requirements has made significant improvement at Yellow Door Energy since 2015. This has triggered the success we achieve every day. Next one. As this presentation is about innovation solar projects, I would like to focus on the innovative scheme that our core business model is, the solar power purchase agreement. This is known as a solar lease or solar agreement in other markets. A solar power purchase agreement, or a PPA as an abbreviation, is a contract with a performance guarantee provided to the customers on a solar plant. It is signed between Yellow Door Energy and the customer, where that brings a long-term partnership. As a solar developer, Yellow Door Energy provides the financing for the project and is responsible for securing permitting, design, building, commissioning, operating, and maintaining the power plant. The customer provides no upfront investment whatsoever. However, the benefits to the customers are saving money on electricity bills and managing long-term electricity costs when the power plant is operational. The customer can continue focusing on their core businesses while improving their sustainability with Yellow Door Energy. The customer only pays a monthly solar bill once the solar plant is operational. The solar PPA works through a build-own-operate transfer arrangement, and the power purchase agreement guarantees a forecast for energy savings, which is immediately triggered over the customer cash flow. Next one, Ahmed. Now, our innovative PPA is presented to you. I would like to bring that concept to life with some real-life case studies, our very own project. Starting first with Carrefour, Majid Al Futim. The picture you see now is actually taken from site. Carrefour Power Plant is located in East Amman lands in Jordan. The project was constructed on a 368,000 square meter of land, which had a difficult terrain prior construction, no roads to access the site, and non-existence of infrastructure. The civil design was made internally in Yellow Door Energy, providing a new topographical design for the whole site space and for a 14-kilometer of road that was also constructed for the project as part of the development. Yellow Door Energy utilized internal resources to achieve permitting, complete engineering, achieve construction, and even contributed significantly in developing the project surrounding area. The project has also a significant support to local communities, which was enforced by allowing them to contribute in the construction phase where possible. The project has taken into account needed hydrological, geotechnical, and environmental control measures which have been implemented on site. To speak about our valued customer, Carrefour, which is part of MAF, Majid Al Futim, whom has a turnover of 35.2 billion dirhams in 2019, a leading shopping mall since 1995 to date, with more than 300 Carrefour stores in the MENA region and more than 30 stores in Jordan only. Their energy consumption has significantly been a motivation to develop their sustainability as they thrive to become one of the most environmentally considerate company in the world. MAF support also the UN Sustainable Development Goals too. Their sustainable targets aims to transform lives and their customer experience, empowering their people while achieving clean audited data for energy, water, and waste footprints. Next one, Ahmed. Carrefour Solar Power Plant achieved required permitting from electrical utilities, municipalities, and ministries in Jordan. The project complies with utility grid impact studies, achieved interconnection agreements, and generation licenses. Constructed according to international standards while being financed and managed by Yellow Door Energy. The innovative, progressive elaboration in between financing, permitting, engineering, procurement, and construction was only possible through the business model we offer, and we've mentioned before, the PPA. Carrefour Power Plant is a live example of a 17 megawatt peak capacity that generates 29 gigawatt hour of energy, which results into 2.8 million JDs of energy savings while reducing 20,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. This is innovation at its best. Now, going to the second case study, the next one. The second case study in Jordan is Classic Fashion. This was a fast-track project which was constructed only in 8 months. A company as big as Classic Fashion looks into innovative solutions to continue thrive while focusing on their core business. Ahmed, if you can go to the next one, please. Since 2003, the company growth reached to having 30,000 workers on their factory floors in Jordan. The largest apparel maker has had a turnover of 600 million in 2019, as Classic Fashion provides apparel to vendors such as Walmart, Adidas, Armani, and many more. The next one, Ahmed. Classic Fashion project has utilized 2 different interconnection lines complying with grid impact studies output, also has achieved interconnection agreements, and was able to reach commercial operation while allowing the development of the surrounding project area and while supporting the local communities. This is something that we are proud to continue doing in Yellow Door Energy. Classic Fashion project actually also is the winner of Solar Project of the Year 2021 as voted by the Middle East Solar Industry Association. As you can see, these 2 projects all implement a solar PPA. The companies were able to take advantage of the PPA provided by Yellow Door Energy to save money and to become more sustainable, all without any upfront investment. The next one. In addition to solar, our company also provides a suite of services, including energy storage, water efficiency systems, energy efficiency solutions such as lighting, cooling services, electrical vehicle charges, and many more. In summary, solar PPAs brings a lot of benefits to businesses. Leading organizations are recognizing the benefits of going solar and saving money without utilizing any of their own investments. New technologies continue also to improve to lower the energy cost. You can reach out for a reliable, sustainable energy partner to learn more. I think that brings my session to a conclusion. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any question, please reach out to us or to CEBS. Thank you so much.
Hello. Do you hear me? Okay.
Hi, Tariq. Sorry, there was a delay from my end. Hi, Tariq. Thanks so much, Azmi. So my connection wasn't great. Very excellent to hear about projects, and we are proud to have Yellow Door as one of our active members within the Clean Energy Business Council. So I would like to thank Azmi again, and again, sorry for the issue from my end. And with that, I would like to introduce Tariq from MENA, who will speak to us about, will go like very far to Morocco and will speak to us about the clean energy projects in Morocco and what are the plans of MENA. And MENA is a role model for everyone in the region actually to look up at, and all the progress that have been done since the establishment of MENA. So Tariq will give us like a short presentation about that, and hopefully we'll have more in-depth discussions about what MENA is doing in future events. So with that, the floor is yours, Tariq. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ahmed Samir. Thank you, Azmi, for the excellent presentation. So I would like to thank CEBC for giving me the opportunity to present our projects at Mazen. So Mazen actually was created about 10 years ago, in 2010, almost 11 years ago. And the reason why is that Morocco at the time, as maybe you know, but Morocco is a country that doesn't have fossil fuel resources, and the consumption was almost doubling. The trend was very high. It was almost doubling every 10 years. And so we had to find a solution with prices of oil by 2008 that were above $100 per barrel. So it was a solution that had to be found. And at the same time, there was at the highest level of the state, there was this will to go green and to go for renewable energy. So as you can see, in 2009, sorry, we had 28% of renewable energy in the energy mix, and there was a very ambitious goal to reach 52% by 2030, knowing that the base of production is growing too. So it's a huge effort. The 28% was basically hydro that existed historically because of dam policy of Morocco since the 1960s. And so we had to add solar and wind. And this was the first, I would say, reason to start this adventure. Please. So Mazen was created, but it was not just about production of renewable energy. Be a strategy that would benefit for the country as a whole, the economical actors, the industry, as well as education. So there were kind of around Mazen. Of course, there is this commitment to reach the figures just show before. And there was also an engagement to work hand in hand with the education schools. So there were combined trainings with many companies at a local, particularly in the regions where the projects were developed. A development of a research and development area also of more than 200 hectares in a kind of ideal environment in order to test the new technologies, as well as industrial integration. So somehow we are making our best effort to connect the international developers with the local companies, and we encourage the developers to have as much as possible local content. So this is part of the strategy. And local development also is important. So as much as possible, we are trying to develop economically the regions around the sites by making investments in infrastructures, roads, potable water, some symbolic actions for agriculture, for sports, for schools, etc. So this is the philosophy. Next slide, please. So how do we operate? How does Mazen operate? So Mazen basically is a company that is private, but the shareholders are public. So we have, at the same time, we benefit from the funds from the state. Structure is flexible, is really market oriented and performance oriented. So what we do is that we have gathered some expertise. This with the projects. So we know how to evaluate the resources. So we have built a solar map of Morocco as well as wind map, and we will see in the upcoming slides that we work also with African countries. We stay on the same slide, please. We also make studies, so we decide what is the best spot to develop a project by benchmarking all the areas and seeing other criteria other than resources. We also identify what are and we work utility to know what are the infrastructures that need to be developed in order to absorb this production. We contribute to mobilizing the funds, because it's not easy to find the funds today. So we try to increase the bankability of the projects, looking and discussing with the main IFIs, financial structures and banks worldwide. We build the infrastructures also around the sites to prepare everything for the developer to come and work and focus on the project. And we also work on the basic design of these projects. So basically, we prepare everything for a developer to come and find a bankable project and have the funds, everything to work. Next slide, please. So as I said, we developed different maps for the resource in Morocco, and we have today this expertise, and we provide this expertise as technical assistance for African countries. Is to see here, for example, of the solar, to have different levels and precision maps that we go develop and we really assess economically if the project is worth it, if it's interesting. Next slide, please. In terms of study, we perform everything, all the studies that are necessary to make sure that the site is interesting. So topography, seismicity, geotechnical studies, in case the technology requires some water, because we have been developing some CSP projects. We make sure that the resource is there and that we are not in competition with other uses of water. Obviously, the sun, the wind, if there is some dust, etc., and environmental studies, waste management studies, and the impact, the economical and social impact on the sites. Next slide, please. So we have been working with some of the most prestigious IFIs, so European, international, the AFD, KfW, the European Bank of Investment, the African Bank of Development, CTF, European Union, as well as some Moroccan banks. So we find the right blend, the right mix between the types of financing in order for each project to be optimized. And we have, fortunately, we have the trust of these banks after so many projects of working together. Next slide, please. So as I said before, we go beyond the studies, and we prepare everything for the developer to make sure that he will focus really on the project. He will not need to build everything around the site, like electrical lines, the roads, water infrastructure. So we do all of this is performed, is constructed by Mazen in the best conditions, in order to lower the price and to lower also the risk budgeting that will result in a lower price for the kilowatt hour. Next slide, please. And then what we do is that obviously we give in the very first phases of the project what are the requirements in terms of technical characteristics and performance, and we make a design review of all the documents of the site. We make sure that the selected developer that is selected with a very competitive and transparent tendering is working and respecting the standards that are in the contract, as well as the best practices, the health, security, environment, etc. We make sure that the logistics are going smoothly and that the permits are acquired. We can help sometimes the developer to get the permits to have a better communication with the authorities, and we continue on following up the project, controlling the project until the commissioning and the startup. So we have experts that are mobilized on site during all the lifetime of the project. Next slide, please. So today we have in Ouarzazate 4 projects, in L'Ayoun Boujdour 2 projects that are So we have at least 6 projects in operation, plus some projects that we are going to develop. So we have developed this expertise in optimizing the performance of production for the sites, and to see what are the minimum required in the contracts is there, and if there is best practices for all what is related to O&M. So this is again an expertise that we today that we provide as a technical assistance for other institutions in Africa. Next slide, please. So Mazen is in charge of all renewable, I would say, big major projects. This is just to give you an idea of the projects that we developed or that have been developed by some partners and that will completely be transferred to Mazen. So for solar projects, we have 700 megawatt today that are in operation, and you can see it's all over the country in the maps. The hydro projects, we have 1,700 megawatts. Wind projects, 1,400 megawatts. And there are also some projects that are developed under a corporate PPA law. So Mazen, in that case, sometimes is a facilitator between the client and the producer, knowing that they are using the grid to transport with the corporate PPA. Next slide, please. So the example of a major complex is Ouarzazate with 580 megawatts. This complex is only solar, and you can see there are multiple technologies used. So photovoltaic, parabolic trough, as well as solar tower. So this is just an example. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the future projects, in order to reach our objectives, we'll have about 6,000 megawatt in addition to what we saw. And this is represented in different technologies. We have photovoltaic, wind, hydro, a mix between photovoltaic and CSP as kind of a hybrid. And again, it's all over the country, and there are plenty of projects that will be developed. Next slide, please. So Mazen is also working on hydrogen, because today it is going to be one of the most important ways to produce, export easily energy, and all the partners in Europe and elsewhere in the world are using this technology. So Mazen is working on it in partnership with some European companies and institutions in order to develop projects and to export this energy in the form of hydrogen or other chemicals containing hydrogen. Next slide, please. So as I said before, Mazen is really a regional actor that is working with most of the African countries. We have several agreements in order to cooperate, to exchange knowledge, and also to make co-development and technical assistance. And you can see it's all over Africa. We have been developing wind and solar mainly, and also we are going to start to work on hydro, particularly in Zambia. We've been working with Burkina Faso and other countries. Next slide, please. So Mazen is also working as an actor with Climate Action Summit with the UN in an initiative that will contribute to the Sustainable Goal 7, and working with Ethiopia to provide electricity access, clean cooking, irrigation, and other things that will. The objective is really to allow the poorest countries to benefit from renewable energy. Next slide, please. Mazen is also working with the African Bank of Development in an initiative that is called Desert to Power. And in this initiative we are working together to develop the renewable energy, as well as sharing of knowledge and expertise in the grid that needs to be developed around the projects. So next slide, please. Last but not least, so we are working with the Islamic Bank of Development in a similar scheme where we develop technical assistance with the co-financing from the Islamic Bank of Development and Mazen to help some projects be bankable and reach and find easily funds. Okay, so last slide. Yes, so this is the set roadmap. So Mazen is working as a gate because you know the position of Morocco is very close to Europe, 14 kilometers from Europe. We are connected by grid, and so Mazen is putting in place as a secretariat with all these countries a scheme to make corporate PPAs with any company in Europe to export renewable energy from Morocco to Europe and vice versa. Thank you, and sorry for the time.
Thank you very much, Taib. Very exciting indeed. I think Morocco is one of the most exciting countries that we should look at continuously on the Young, Earnest and Young European Energy Index on the top of the list of the Arab countries. So thanks again for the very exciting presentation, and hopefully we'll have more projects being featured within the future CEBC events and the coming events. Thank you very much, Todd. And with that, I would like to introduce the next speaker, Ian Beatty. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correct. Who will speak to us about the EV infrastructure, the electric vehicle infrastructure, and how we could make this accessible for everyone. And from CETA, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ahmed. And yes, your pronunciation was very, very close indeed. So I'm happy with that. First off, I would just like to say good morning from here in the UK, or good afternoon to everyone joining the CEBC annual summit. And congratulations to everyone at CEBC for the past couple of days. It's been certainly a very engaging summit and something that's captured everyone's attention. So congratulations for that. Today, I would like to have introduced CETA, EV charging solutions, to CEBC visitors here today, and not specifically focus on any one particular project, but I'll probably look at what we see CETA and EV charging as a project as a whole. And I have to say this morning's panel session was very interesting, where Sam from Green Parking and Mark from Renault had some real good differing opinions on the issue with the number of EVs that are hitting the Middle East region at the minute. So we see that as a bit of a stumbling block also, but we're sure that will change. And what we see is, from a CETA's perspective, we have an interesting overview of the market, given the fact that we are based here in the UK. We have a full set-up regional office based in JLT in Dubai. We also operate in the American market. So we get to see the different stages of the EV marketplace and the EV charging infrastructure across the world. So what we're looking for in the Middle East market right now, we are trying to encourage the adoption of the EV charging infrastructure through partnerships with CETA. We have a number of partners that are currently operating in the region, and we're trying to develop something close to the model that we see operate very well already in the UK, where we have a real mix of public charging spaces, private charging spaces for commercial premises, and then residential parking spaces. We are seeing in the UK, if we can just move to the next slide, when we talk about EV adoption, we have managed to adopt a far larger number of vehicles and manufacturers, and we do see vehicles, an entire range of the options on vehicles, down from very small cars up to the high-end Porsches and Teslas. So we are fairly lucky in the market that we do serve here. But we do see the trend, the global trend, electric vehicles. We all know that the adoption of EV is a tidal wave that's coming towards us. Some areas slightly faster than others, but ultimately all areas of the entire globe will have to adopt EVs as the chosen method, and we won't see much happening in terms of the ICE vehicles going forward. Next slide. UAE trends, again, like most countries, we are seeing a huge amount of growth. We do compare almost on a daily basis the trends in the UAE to the UK. And again, we are seeing that adoption in the UK tends to be far quicker. I think we're about 15% of all new vehicles registered in the UK at the minute tends to be plug-in of some form, mostly full electric, but some hybrid also. And we know that UAE is ready for that. So we've been operating in the technology sector within the UAE for quite a long time now, probably 10 to 15 years. And we do see the UAE as a developing centre of technology excellence. So with that, vehicles are going to come. We can see the potential for homegrown vehicles within UAE and the technology from manufacturers of vehicles and EV charging, and to develop the infrastructure further. Not just the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, but the electrical infrastructure as well that allows that charging infrastructure to be maintained. Next slide. So with CETA, we're trying to redefine the EV charging solution globally with different teams in different areas, focusing on the requirements for that area. In the UK, we have a very aged infrastructure, an electrical infrastructure that really struggles to adopt EV charging solutions. In UAE and in Dubai in particular, we have a slightly different problem. The problem there in terms of adoption is the number of vehicles, but the electrical infrastructure is fantastic in Dubai, a fairly new electrical infrastructure, which allows companies like CETA and our partners to quite readily take an EV charging infrastructure into areas that it hadn't been in before. Next slide. So the solutions for CETA we are trying to develop a solution that will encompass all needs and all requirements. We move on, yep, to the next slide, yeah. So we have anything from 7 kilowatt residential, small workplace solutions, through to 22 kilowatt AC and 44 kilowatt AC rapid chargers, up to fast DC chargers, super fast DC chargers. What we would like to see, though, is that those charging capabilities are educated further out into the EV drivers. So typically, an EV driver wants to charge their car as quickly as possible, which makes sense because we all strive to charge our EV as quickly as we can fill it with gasoline. But sometimes that's not necessarily the best thing for the car, and it's not necessarily required. Certainly, if we look at we've been struggling to find an average distance that a car would potentially drive in a week in UAE or in the Dubai region. If we look at that in the UK, the average car in the UK, certainly 90% of privately owned cars drives less than 250 miles per week. Realistically, for our customers, some of them, the vehicles that they drive, that means one charge per week, and that could be one overnight charge on a Sunday evening or a Monday evening. While you sleep, your car is charging. So we automatically assume that the technology there for EV cars means that we can't fill the car up as quick as we can with a gasoline car, but we forget that whilst we are sleeping, we're filling our electric vehicles. If we plug them in to charge overnight, the vehicle's ready to go the next morning, and that charge could certainly serve the purpose for a whole week, depending on the distance that you're traveling. And that's certainly not something that we can do when we're filling our ICE cars, can we? We can't leave the petrol pump running overnight. So we're certainly trying to educate the market that charging doesn't have to be a burden at all. If you manage your charging and you select the right vehicle and you manage your journeys, then charging, if anything, could potentially become far easier than filling up at the gas pump. If we move on to the next slide. So we won't spend too long on these slides. So it's just to demonstrate the fact that at CETA we have full software solutions. So from back end to smart app control, to allow proper smart charging of your vehicle, scheduled charging, to allow that to happen safely and conveniently, and to allow and maintain perfect control of your charging infrastructure, whether that be one charger at home, that's still very much a charging infrastructure, or whether you are a shopping mall or a retail or leisure outlet that's managing anything from 4, 5 up to 20 chargers. The ability to access the information on your chargers, the functionality of your chargers and their capability is ultimately very important. Next slide. So what we're trying to do in the Middle East market, we understand that right now it's not necessarily possible for all chargers to be a way to generate revenue. But what we do see in the UK market, and we fully expect the Middle East market to adopt the same, would be where an electric vehicle charger on a commercial premises suddenly becomes a revenue generation tool. So if we think of some of our clients here in the UK, even very small businesses adopting an EV charging solution, that means that they offer charging to their own employees, they offer charging to their business vehicles, but they also use the same charger to offer public space charging. And as the public approaches and use that charger, the revenue generated from using that, from supplying the energy and charging for that energy, is then taken back into the business, ultimately meaning a more profitable business. Next slide. As you can imagine, with all chargers, we're really looking at the app control. So we expect everything in our daily lives right now seems to revolve around apps, and that doesn't change with EV charging. So smart solutions at the touch of your finger on your smart device, whether that be an Apple Watch or an iPhone, whatever it's going to be, then the technology should be, and the information should be at the touch of your fingers on your charging solutions. Next slide. And something that we would just like to, I suppose we would like the entire globe to focus on, would be that a charging infrastructure, again, is not just for large power companies, it's not just for large malls, it's not just for large corporate businesses. Charging infrastructure is for everyone. So small local businesses can be involved here to generate revenue for themselves, but ultimately to help increase the charging infrastructure, to ease the burden on the charging infrastructure, and to assist in the adoption of EVs. And let's take away the range anxiety, the worry that there's not enough chargers in place already. So as small independent businesses, everyone can do their piece to help increase that charging infrastructure. Next slide. So again, we're sure that everyone here in the CEBC, we're absolutely dedicated to the future of energy consumption, of a far more green approach to the planet. So we're very much the same at CETA, and we're sure that all our partners and anyone else involved in the EV charging market is the exact same. But ultimately, what we're looking to do is build that sustainable charging infrastructure from CETA to assist the manufacturers, to assist our partners, to assist the end users and the mobility of our populations in a sustainable manner. So I'd just like to thank you. If you could move to the next slide. I would just like to thank everyone for your time and pass on, just moving on to the final slide, I would just like to pass on our best wishes from everyone at CETA across all our offices at a very trying time for everyone globally right now. CEBC, again, you've done a fantastic job holding the virtual summit. Hopefully the next summit that you guys have, we can all be in attendance. And it's something that I'm absolutely missing, a trip to Dubai to meet people in person and to get a better feel for the market when I'm in Dubai personally. So Ahmed, well done again on a fantastic job, and just to wish everyone best wishes and best health from the entire team at CETA.
Thank you very much, Ian, and good to know about your plans, and hopefully we'll see a lot of the CETA charging stations in the UAE and in the region soon. Again, very much. And with that, I'd like to introduce the last session, the last presentation in our summit for this year, which would be about energy efficiency in MENA, status and outlook. And this briefly, I think Rida and Elif will introduce the paper. But this is just a teaser for another webinar, which will be longer and we'll have time for discussion. So this is going to be a very short presentation. So with that, I'd like to introduce Elif Kara, who is a research associate at CEBC, and Rida Sabuni, who is MENA Managing Director for Energetics, to present the paper and the data we have. Do we have Rida? And just since Ian mentioned the next annual summit, it's definitely going to be in person. It's actually our first time to do it virtually. So the next one will be in person and will be happening within Expo at Expo site early next year. The date will be announced on the CEBC website. So please keep an eye, and we will announce the details very soon. Hi, Rida. Yeah. So please, Rida and Elif, feel free to introduce yourself and start the presentation.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for attending. We're going to wrap you up with this session today. I see the screen is already being shared. So thank you, Elif, for that. My name is Rida Sabouni. I'm the managing director for Energetics in the MENA region. Energetics is a clean energy consultancy. We provide advice, strategy, program development for government and commercial sector clients across the United States and also in the MENA region. So I'm happy to be with you today and to tell you more about this energy efficiency in the MENA white paper, the status and outlook.
So hi everyone, my name is Elif and I joined the Clean Energy Business Council as a climate finance intern. And currently I'm a research associate and working on diverse subjects regarding energy efficiency, transition, and climate finance. I'm based in France and working towards my graduate degree in finance. So I have a much more junior profile, but we've been working on this paper together with Rida and Maria. So yeah, it will be interesting to share our insights with you today. But before we go into the part regarding the white paper, I just would like to take the opportunity to briefly introduce you CEBC. Clean Energy Business Council is a non-profit membership organization aiming at promoting the uptake of renewable and clean technologies. And we do that mainly through establishing dialogues between the public and private sector and raising awareness using different tools such as our annual summit that you are attending this year. We represent the private sector involvement in the clean energy all across the MENA region, and we also develop and present policy solutions to support clean energy. We work on a variety of topics with our 5 different working groups covering subjects on climate finance, energy efficiency, e-mobility, women involvement in clean energy, and lastly, the recently established hydrogen and energy storage. And now Rida will give you some background information and the latest updates on the paper that will be published soon and help us really understand the need for a white paper on this subject.
Thank you, Elif. Okay, so basically we have released in January of 2018 a paper which was entitled Energy Efficiency in the GCC. So this is something that can be downloaded from the CEBC Energy Efficiency Working Group webpage. You could see the link on the screen, and hopefully someone can put it in the chat as well. But so that paper can be downloaded. In addition to that, there are resources that basically show the electricity tariffs across the GCC region. We've organized that into 2 separate web pages. The first one shows residential tariffs, and then the second one shows commercial, industrial, and government sector tariffs as well. And the white paper itself focused on buildings, industrial, and transportation sectors, and it provided basically the status of energy efficiency developments across the GCC, as well as recommendations for businesses and policymakers. So I think this paper was very well received. It provided this comprehensive look at energy efficiency and really what's been going on, what's been changing across the region. There have been, a variety of electricity tariff changes, fuel subsidy changes, as we'll talk about in the next few slides. And so this now has been over 3 years since it was released. And so if you could go to the next slide, we will now be releasing an updated version that will be next month in June. And this version will include some really important updates. So the first thing that we'll be doing is expanding the scope a little bit outside of the GCC now to cover Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and developments in Lebanon as well. We'll be looking at the latest updates in regional energy price reforms, so electricity tariffs across all of these countries, and also the latest market developments, again, focusing on the sectors of buildings, ESCO industry, transportation, and industry. Some updated recommendations for policymakers, and as I mentioned, more in-depth electricity tariff pricing structures. So please do save the date. We are planning to launch this updated white paper June 15 at 4 p.m. Gulf Standard Time. And looks like, yes, we have put a link to register for this webinar, and we will be sending a formal announcement through CEBC in the coming few days. So, look forward to, providing even more details at this session. For now, really, this is the sneak peek into the updated white paper. So we'll go to the next slide. So the idea is there have been a number of updates across the region in terms of energy prices and tariffs. And you could see them in the headlines that you have on the screen. So every day when we look at the news, we're seeing that there are changes taking place across the region, in terms of electricity and energy prices. And so what has been happening as a whole, if you could go to the next slide, Elif. So here's the macro look at what's been happening. So focusing just on 4 countries here, you could see some obvious trends here. So first of all, significant reductions in electricity subsidies, from 2010 to 2019, especially focused in the UAE and Qatar. So about a 90% reduction in those 2 countries. Also very significant, not quite as much, but in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, it's around a 61% reduction in electricity subsidies in that time period. But it has not been even across the region, right? So if you look at Kuwait, you'll notice it was mostly flat between 2010 to 2019. And then in Egypt, actually, the subsidies increased in that time period. So some interesting, trends across the region, and it's something that we explore more fully within the white paper itself. So what are the actual tariffs across the region? Well, Elif will tell us a little bit more about that.
So here on the screen, we see some data that you will be able to find in the paper once it's published. And we have compiled this data by researching through various resources. In some countries, it was easier to find information than others. So this may be one of the things to potentially be beneficial to improve in the future. The figure on the left shows data points on the MENA residential sector electricity tariffs, and the figure on the right contains data on all other sectors except residential, such as government, industrial, commercial, etc. The figures actually give a more country level and general view, but we can still catch some interesting information on them. For instance, firstly, we see that across all the sectors, Jordan and Morocco's data points extend farther than other countries, with Jordan having the highest tariffs. These 2 countries also contain many data points, which indicate a much more complex electricity tariff structure than other countries. We can also observe that Kuwait has the lowest electricity tariffs when it comes to residential sector, but it's also generally low in the other sectors as well. We see that in figure 2, especially after Jordan and Morocco, Oman has numerous data points for non-residential sectors as well. And this is mainly due to the cost-reflective tariffs that the country applies to the largest industrial, government, and commercial customers since 2017. And lastly, across the UAE, we see that Abu Dhabi has the lowest rate of electricity tariffs. So if you could go to the next slide, thank you. So these 2 graphs just illustrate some of the points that were mentioned in the previous slide, but in a more detailed way. Here in front of us, we have 2 non-residential tariff structures from 2 places, Northern Emirates and Jordan. And categories show that Northern Emirates apply a more simple tariff structure across various sectors based on the slab rates. And on the other hand, Jordan illustrates really how complex the tariff structure can get. There's basically a different tariff applied for many different users. So you will be able to find this type of information on the other countries as well in the upcoming white paper. As we said, we're just trying to give you a sneak peek and give you a sense of the paper in general during this presentation. So besides the data that we present in electricity tariffs in the paper, another part is really given a sectoral point of view. So we are looking at different sectors to provide recommendations to policymakers and other stakeholders to really improve the energy efficiency landscape in the region. So the pie chart on the left shows the largest consumers of total final energy in the Middle East. And according to the IEA data, we see that industry, transport, and residential sectors aggregated all together consume 3/4 of the total final energy in the region. So these are the sectors that we naturally focused on the paper as well. Also, the largest consumers of the total final energy in the region are residential and industrial sectors, as you can see on the pie chart on the right-hand side. Now Rida will go more into detail on the highlights on the previously mentioned sectors and give recommendations for different stakeholders.
Thank you, Elif. So if we want to focus first on the industrial sector, as Elif mentioned, it is the largest sector in terms of total final energy consumption, so 31%, and also 22% of electricity. Also globally, the industrial sector does consume more primary energy than any other sector. At the regional level, it also contributes 10% of GCC GDP as of 2015. So what has been happening in terms of industrial sector? So we just really have a couple of highlights here in this presentation. So in Saudi Arabia, as an example, they actually have energy efficiency targets in place that must be adhered to for certain energy intensive industries. So things like cement and steel, aluminum, and petrochemicals. So these current targets, are the average of 2018 benchmarks that need to be met by the year 2025. And that is something that is actually shown within the website of the Saudi Energy Efficiency Center, or SEEC. So that's taking place in Saudi Arabia for energy intensive sector. In the UAE, we see a large aluminum, cement, and petroleum refining industries. We also have targets in place for the industrial sector to reach 25% of GDP by 2025. We have things going on like Dubai aiming to become an international hub for knowledge-based innovation and sustainable industries. Another trend across the region is really the importance of energy management policies. So both the UAE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia place a great emphasis on the development of industrial energy management policies, especially utilizing the framework of ISO 50001, which is the International Energy Management System standard. Each of these countries actually participate in what's called the Clean Energy Ministerial. It's an association of the largest economies across the globe, the energy ministries of these economies, and both the UAE and KSA are supporters of the Energy Management Working Group, which is effectively the ISO 50001 working group of the Clean Energy Ministerial. So that is for industrial sector. In terms of recommendations, that for policymakers in particular, we do recommend incentivizing industrial energy management programs, again, focusing on ISO 50001. This is something that has been popular across the world since the standard was released in 2011. So some regions across the world, for example, the European Union, have actually incentives in place, financial incentives for companies, organizations to either perform energy audits or to actually implement ISO 50001. In the GCC in particular, the UAE leads the way with more ISO 50001 certifications than any other countries. And you could even see an impressive stat, which is 2 organizations within the region in the UAE and in Oman have won the prestigious Clean Energy Ministerial Award for Excellence in Energy Management, which basically is given to the top organization across the world who has implemented an ISO 50001 project. In addition to energy management, other recommendations is really to provide incentives to industrial organizations to perform energy audits. So energy audits is the first stepping stone really to identifying energy savings. And there can be programs put in place to provide incentives for those types of energy audits. Also, developing an industrial energy management workforce is really critical. You need to have staff who are trained, and the industrial sector is actually quite special and unique. It involves more expertise than the building sector, for example. And so, one program that can be done or is being done in Saudi Arabia, for example, is through the KFUPM. So they have implemented a center of excellence for energy efficiency. That's the King Fahd University for Petroleum and Minerals. And that was done looking at the U.S. Department of Energy's model for industrial assessment centers, which basically provides energy audits to companies in the United States for the industrial sector specifically. If we could go to the next slide. So looking at transportation quickly, so a lot of things going on in transportation, I think, as we've heard over the last couple of days. It is a major consumer of energy across the region. We see a lot of structural changes with the shift away from internal combustion engines toward electric vehicles, of course. And just a few highlights. In Dubai, we have seen that they have announced great savings in the transportation sector. We also see in the Northern Emirates, for example, FIWA is starting to operate a number of different EV charging stations across the Northern Emirates. In Saudi Arabia, a particularly interesting development is with the mega projects going on there. So NEOM is one, but another one is also the Red Sea Development Company. They are basically developing an entire sustainable hotel and tourism destination in Saudi Arabia along the Red Sea, which will open its first hotel by what is planned to be the end of next year, and that will be completely sustainable, reliant on renewable and wind, solar and wind electricity, and utilizing plug-in electric vehicles throughout the resort and throughout the destination. So that's a pretty impressive show of support for electric vehicles from the kingdom. Also in Egypt, we see that they are starting to operate electric buses in Greater Cairo and Alexandria for a number of years now. Also starting to locally manufacture passenger electric vehicles and charging stations, and they have provided incentives for EVs. If we could go to the next slide. So we have a number of recommendations for the transportation sector. I won't go through each one in detail in the interest of time, but we will have more details when the white paper is released and at the launch event for the white paper. But basically, it involves, developing corporate fuel economy standards, planning for electric vehicle adoption, planning for connected and automated autonomous vehicles. Educating the public is going to be critical as we shift towards electric vehicles. And also for vehicle fleet owners is conducting energy fleet assessments and really just planning to green your fleet in terms of electric vehicles. We could go to the next slide. So if we focus on buildings now quickly before we wrap up. So for building owners, a number of things that building owners can do for our recommendations. So that includes defining goals, learning about different methods to achieve the savings and to achieve your goals, performing an energy audit or hiring an ESCO, and there's a number of accredited ESCOs and energy auditors across the region, and then monitoring and reporting on progress and achievements. I'll go to the next slide. And then finally, for policymakers as well, is providing incentive programs focusing on energy reporting, training and education programs as well are also critical. And again, we'll have more details in the white paper that will be released. So we'll go to the next slide in the interest of time. Then finally, just on ESCOs, we actually have a section also on ESCOs talking about the developments there, including the latest developments across the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and other countries also across the region. So well, I think we'll wrap it up again just to keep us on time. So we'll go to the next slide and really just thank you for your for being here for this presentation. We do have this webinar coming up on June 15. So if we could maybe put the link again for you to register for this event. We will have more details on each of these topics, and we will release the full white paper with the details then. So we look forward to having you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Reda and Elif, and looking forward to the webinar launching the white paper. So please, the link is in the chat. Do register, click on the link and register, and you will get more details. And hopefully, we'll have also more time for the discussion during the webinar on June 15th. So with that, I would like to conclude actually the annual summit and thank all the attendees who joined us over the last 2 days. And also I would like to thank all the summit sponsors: Green Parking, Standard Chartered, CETA, Pinsent Masons, Innova, Catholic Mobility, ESB International, Hager Group, Enoch, Emirates National Oil Company, Lockton, and Scami as well. So again, thanks all for joining, and please just, keep following our website and social media. We'll be posting about the webinar that's coming up. We have a few other webinars coming up as well, and the white paper and a few other publications which should be interesting for you as well. So please keep an eye, and thank you all for joining, and have an excellent and a great day. Thank you.